Hey guys, welcome to today's lesson. We're going to be going through box plots. Again, the first part will be revision. You've done this before. And then we're going to be looking more at interpreting the box plots and the information from the actual box plots. First of all, box plots uses that 5-point summary data that hopefully we sort of remember. And what's that 5-point summary data? Well, we have the lower extreme, often represented by L, as we can see there. The lower quartile, Q1. The median, or the middle quartile, which is Q2, the upper quartile, Q3, and we have the higher extreme, often represented by H. Once we can find that information, then we put it on a number line and draw up our box and whisker plot. There'll be two types of questions, I guess. The first, where we have an odd amount of numbers. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 numbers. And then when we have even numbers can be slightly different. So let's have a look at those. So we know that we're going to be looking for the lowest, the Q1, Q2, Q3, and the highest score. So lowest and highest are pretty straightforward. Lowest in this case is 5, highest is 13. The next thing we look for is the Q2. Okay, that's our sort of our starting point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have a middle number. Remember, the middle number is going to be our Q2. So we want to make sure it's in highest to smallest to highest, or highest to smallest, whatever way you want to have it. And then we put it in order, as I said, and then cross out to get the middle number. When we have odd numbers, we have one middle number. So I can write down here that my Q2 is 8. I'm going to just write here Q2. You can see that I've used 8 as my quartile 2. Therefore, when I go to find my lower quartile, which is the median of the left-hand side, we don't use the 8, okay, because I've already used it for my quartile 2. So now I'm going to cross out one on each side. I've got two middle numbers, so we add them together and divide by 2, which gives us the same answer of 6, and that's going to be our quartile 1. I'm going to do the same thing with the right hand side for quartile 3. So cross off, I've got 11 and 12. So halfway between those two is going to be 11.5, and that's my Q3. And look at that, my 5-point summary. I'm now going to draw my number line. Always have a number line for graphs, so you can have a bit of a scale. My last number is 5. I go up to 13, so I may as well put all the numbers. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oops. And then making sure that they have the same distance apart. Once I've got that, let's plot the information on. So I've got a dot there for 5, a dot there for 6, a dot there for 8, a dot there for 11.5, halfway between, and a dot there for 13. I now draw my whiskers on each of the ends, and then I'm going to draw my box, followed by the line in the middle, which makes my median line. So I've got my lowest number of 5, I've got 6, I've got 8 now. Often, if you have numbers which are hard to read off the scale, I often put these numbers above it. In this case, I probably didn't need to do that, as you can see, because it's pretty basic. Remembering too that the box and whisker plot is split up into quarters, which means that that's 25% of the scores, that's 25% of the scores, that's 25% of the scores, and that's 25% of the scores. The other thing we might be able to ask is the interquartile range, which is our range of the quartiles, which means the highest quartile minus the lowest quartile. In this case, we've got 11.5. We're going to be minusing 6 from that to get an answer of 5.5. Don't be misled with that with the range. The range would be 13 subtract 5, okay, but interquartile range in this case would be 5.5. Okay, let's go on to the second question. This time we've got even numbers. Okay, so we're going to start off again. We're going to write down lowest number, Q1, Q2, Q3, and then the upper. So again, I can write down my lowest. In this case, it's 3. My highest is 30. I'm going to find my Q2 by crossing things out. That's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Two middle numbers this time. I'm going to add them together, divide by 2. So it's going to remain as 15. That's my Q2. Now, this is slightly different to the last question, because the last question, we actually used one of the numbers as our Q2. But here, can you see how I've drawn the middle number in, which means I haven't used the 15. So now when I try to find my Q1 from the left-hand side, I will use that 15 to get the middle number, in this case of 8. I'm going to do the same thing for the right hand side. 1, 2, 1, 2. We have 25. And I can now put those numbers in. We've got 8, we've got 15, and we've got 25. That's really the only difference with these types of questions. The same thing will apply now. I'm going to draw my number line. I'm going from 3 to 30, so let's go up by 5s. So 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. And I'm going to put my 5 points of information on there. So we've got 3, which is sort of about here. We've got 8, sort of about there. 15, 25, and 30. Draw my whiskers as we did on that last example. Put in my box as we did that last example, and then finally the Q2 line. Now this probably is fairly important because I can't quite see that. It kind of looks like it's 2.5, but I'm really not really sure. So I'm going to put 3 above it so people can read that correctly, and certainly I can read it. Q1, I'm going to put 8 above it, then 15, then 25, and then 30. So then now if I had to do my interquartile range, which is my Q3 take away Q1, we're going to be doing 25 subtract 8, which is going to leave me with 17 as my answer. You know, they might say what percentage of scores were between 15 and 3. We go, well, that's 25%, that's 25%, therefore 50% of the scores were between 3 and 15 or less, or 15 and less. So that's a bit of a sort of an idea of a question. So let's have a look at an exam style question. Now I will say a lot of exams will actually give you back-to-back box and whisker plots or double box and whisker plots, and they'll ask you to compare as opposed to draw, but make sure you can draw them just in case. This question says, the double box and whisker plot shows the amount of data uploaded and downloaded by Zara each day for the past month is as follows. So the numbers on the bottom are saying how much data that they downloaded each day for that past month. So for example, the median you can see here for the downloads was 16, the median for the uploads here was about 21, etc. So it's going to ask us to read that information and then interpret. So the first question says find the interquartile range for uploading. Uploading is green. We've just been doing the interquartile range. We know that to be Q3 subtract Q1. It's a little bit hard to read, I know. It's a bit small on the page, but that's okay. So Q3 you can see is sort of halfway between these two numbers, which is 23 and 24. So I'd say it'd be 23.5. Q1 is a bit easier. It's going to be 15, 16, 17. So I'm subtracting those to get, that looks to be about 6.5. I think that's right. Okay, so you can see that's fairly straightforward. Question 2. And it's only 1 mark too, so it's pretty easy. What percentage of downloading is the amount of data less than 16? Okay, percentage. Whenever you see a box and whisker plot, and they start talking about percentages, think about your quartiles. Your 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%, because that's probably what it's referring to. So it says what percentage of download, blue, is the amount less than 16. Well, 16 is here, and look, where the 16 is, that's where your Q2 line is, which means to the left of it, we have the 25% there, we have the further 25% here, which means that we have 50% of scores less than 16. So again, pretty straightforward. There's nothing really hard there, but just don't get confused. People start trying to do fractions and turn it fractions, percentages. Okay, box and whisker plots, think about your quartiles. The last one says, Nathan said that the graph shows Zara downloads more data than she uploads. Do you agree with Nathan's statement and give a reason? 1 mark. If it's worth 2 marks, you're trying to give a few more reasons. Now, first case, a lot of people will look at this graph and say, yeah, no, he's correct because the blue is much bigger than the green. Now, the downloads is much bigger, it's longer. But remember, box plots are showing the spread, not particularly just the number of things that are occurring. So let's start looking at the other things that we know. I mean, average. Average is a really good thing to use because if one average is higher than the other, then we know which one's the biggest. If we look at the uploads, we mentioned this early on in this question, we can see that the median line here was at 21. Therefore, uploads, the median was 21 downloads each day. Whereas the median uploads, should I say, the median downloads for that month was 16. So which means on average, each day that month, they downloaded 16 times, or 16 things, or whatever that actual value is. Whereas for the uploads, she actually averaged 21 per day. Therefore, I would say for this question, I would say I am going to disagree, and then we need to give a reason, because I'm going to say the median uploads of 21 is greater than the median downloads of 16 per day. So I've told them yes or no, I agree or I disagree. That's the first thing, which is very, very important. And then I've given them a reason based on the data that I've used, referring to those words such as median or the quartiles and those types of things. Okay, look, box plots for the most part, guys, are pretty straightforward. You may be asked to draw them, you may be asked to interpret them, you may be asked to do both. So just make sure you're really familiar. Start using the lingo of median, Q1, Q2, quartiles. Get used to the percentages of the quartiles, 25%, 25%, etc. And just make sure you hit these questions, because you will always see some type of box plot question within that exam paper or half-year paper. Best of luck, guys. If you need some extra help, please let me know.